She never forgot the moment her heart shifted, quietly, almost without warning, because of something her little boy whispered in the stillness of a midnight hallway. It happened on a night that felt heavier than usual, the kind of night when the house seemed to breathe with her, filling the silence with memories she wasn't ready to face. From the outside, nothing looked different, but inside her chest everything felt unsettled, as if her emotions were pacing circles they couldn't escape. Her name was Leora, and she had spent so many evenings pretending she was fine, pretending that she wasn't afraid of losing her way, pretending that her heart hadn't been quietly aching ever since her marriage had begun to feel more like an echo than a partnership. And on that night, nearing midnight, she found herself standing by the kitchen sink, staring at the faint reflection in the window. The moonlight softened her tired features, making her look calmer than she felt. That was when she heard the small voice. "Mom?" It was gentle, hesitant, the way only a child's voice can be when carrying something heavier than his small shoulders should ever hold. She turned immediately. Her son, Nolan, only 7 years old, stood by the doorway in his soft pajamas, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. His dark hair stuck up on one side, as if sleep had tussled with it and won. But his expression was not the sleepy one she expected. He looked worried. She knelt down in front of him, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she whispered. Nolan glanced behind her, as if making sure the house wasn't listening, and then leaned in closer. "Mom, are you sad again?" The question pierced her chest in a way she hadn't prepared for. She thought she'd hidden it well. The quiet tears behind closed doors, the smile she practiced in the mirror, the way she avoided certain conversations with her husband, Rashawn, because she no longer knew how to bridge the growing distance between them. She forced a soft smile, but her throat tightened. "Why do you think that?" she asked gently. Nolan shifted his feet, eyes lowering. "Because when you think nobody sees you, you sigh the way people do when they miss someone." Leora blinked, stunned by the sincerity in his voice. That was not something she expected from a child so young. Children noticed more than adults often realized, but this was different. She felt her heart tremble. "What makes you think I miss someone?" she asked softly. Nolan hesitated before answering. "Because sometimes, when Dad walks past you, you look like you remember something you wish could come back." The words settled around her like snow, quiet, cold, and overwhelming. She inhaled, slow and shaky, feeling her eyes sting. Her son had seen straight through her carefully built calm, and it shook her more than she wanted to admit. She took his small hands in hers. "Thank you for telling me that," she whispered. "You're very thoughtful, you know." Nolan nodded, as if it were simply a fact he had accepted long ago. Then he said something that shifted everything inside her. "Mom, it's okay to tell the truth out loud. When you keep it quiet, your heart works too hard." The sentence was so simple, so innocent, yet it cut deeper and gentler than any advice she'd heard from adults. Children didn't dress their words in layers. They spoke straight from the soul. She felt tears pool at the corners of her eyes. In that moment, she realized she couldn't keep moving through life pretending she wasn't hurting. Her son deserved a mother who felt whole, not one who quietly broke each night. She pulled him into her arms, holding him close, breathing in the warm scent of sleep and innocence. She whispered a promise she wasn't even sure she fully understood yet. "I'll try," she murmured. "I promise I'll try." A small smile touched Nolan's lips as he rested his head on her shoulder. And as she held him, she felt something shift, a slow awakening, a quiet spark, a truth she could no longer ignore. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. But just as she rose to take her son back to bed, she heard the faint creak of a door down the hall, Rashawn's door, and she wasn't sure if he had heard everything. Leora froze for a moment, her breath catching as the faint sound echoed down the quiet hallway. It wasn't loud, just the soft click of a door that hadn't been fully shut. But in the stillness of the night, it felt sharper than it should have. She held Nalin's hand gently, steadying herself before guiding him back toward his room. Every step felt delicate, as though the air itself was fragile. She didn't want him to sense her worry. Childhood should feel safe, not tangled in the quiet tensions adults tried so hard to hide. When they reached his room, she tucked him under his soft blanket, smoothing it around his small shoulders. His eyes looked calmer now, sleep returning to him in slow waves. "Mom," he murmured. "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you okay?" The question made her smile this time, small but real. "I will be," she whispered. "Try to sleep now." Nalin nodded, closing his eyes, and within a few breaths his breathing settled into that slow, peaceful rhythm she had always loved. She kissed his forehead and stepped quietly into the hallway, closing the door with the gentlest click. And there, at the other end of the corridor, she saw him. Rashawn stood half in the shadows, arms loosely crossed, his expression unreadable. The dim, warm light from the night lamp softened his features, but she could still sense the distance that had been growing between them for so long. Her heart fluttered, not in excitement, but in the uneasy way one feels when standing at the edge of an unspoken truth. "How long were you standing there?" she asked softly. Rashawn exhaled, running a hand through his slightly disheveled hair. "Long enough to hear a few things," he replied, his voice low, not harsh, but weighted. Leora felt heat rise to her face, not from embarrassment, but from vulnerability. She had never meant for him to overhear. Those were feelings she barely admitted to herself, let alone to him. "I didn't want you to hear it that way," she said. He nodded once, as if accepting that, though his eyes showed something deeper, something uncertain, something almost wounded. "You sigh when you think no one notices?" he said quietly. The words stung because they were true. Leora leaned lightly against the wall, her fingers curling at her side. "I guess, maybe I do." There was a silence between them, not cold, but heavy, stretching across the hallway like a bridge they were both afraid to step onto. Rashawn spoke first. "I didn't realize you felt that way," he admitted. "Or maybe I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to reach you anymore." His honesty surprised her. He wasn't a man who shared feelings easily. He carried his worries inside, tucked away behind calm expressions and long work hours. She had often wondered if he even noticed the distance between them. Now she wondered if he had felt it just as much. Leora swallowed, her voice softening. "We used to talk about everything. Do you remember?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, I miss Nat too." Something shifted in her chest, a quiet tug of the heart. "Then why did we stop?" she whispered. Rashawn took a step closer, but not too close, just enough for her to sense a gentle sincerity she hadn't felt from him in a long time. "I think we both got scared," he said. "Scared that being honest would make things worse instead of better." Leora felt her throat tighten. How many nights had she sat alone, convinced that sharing her fears would only widen the gap? How many moments had he felt the same? For the first time in months, she looked directly into his eyes. "You heard what Nayland said," she murmured. "He sees more than we show." "Kids always do," Rashawn said quietly. "Maybe he's braver than we are." A soft, unexpected warmth bloomed in her chest. Maybe the distance between them wasn't a wall after all. Maybe it was just a fear they had both fed in silence. She breathed out, slow and steady. "Do you want to talk?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. Rashawn hesitated, his expression shifting just enough to reveal the depth of his own uncertainty. "Yes," he said, "but not here, and not while we're both this emotional." Leora nodded. She understood. But as she turned away to head toward her room, she felt his voice follow her, gentle, almost fragile. "Leora, I didn't know you missed something you wished could come back." She stopped, her hand pausing on the doorknob. For a moment, she didn't know whether his words made her more hopeful or more afraid. Leora barely slept that night. Her mind kept circling back to the hallway, to the expression on Rashawn's face when he admitted he missed the way they used to talk. Those words lingered like a soft echo against her heart, comforting and unsettling at the same time. By the time morning arrived, her eyes felt heavy, yet the house felt unusually calm. Sunlight filtered gently through the kitchen windows, brushing warm gold across the counter. It was a peaceful scene, one she used to love, but today it felt filled with unspoken things. She quietly prepared breakfast, letting the familiar rhythm settle her thoughts. The sound of eggs sizzling in the pan, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even the soft tapping of her spoon against a mug, all of it grounded her in the present moment. She was stirring warm oatmeal when she felt someone step into the kitchen. Rashawn. He wasn't usually up this early, yet here he was, leaning lightly against the doorway, looking as if he had braved his own long night of thoughts. "Morning," he said gently. "Morning," she replied, keeping her voice calm, though her chest fluttered. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just filled with fragile understanding. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Can we talk later? Maybe when Nolan is at school?" Her spoon paused mid-stir. "Okay," she replied softly. "We can." He nodded, the faintest bit of relief crossing his face. Just then, small footsteps pattered down the hallway. Nolan walked in, his hair still messy from sleep, clutching his favorite stuffed fox under one arm. His bright smile warmed the room, cutting through the tension like sunlight cutting through clouds. "Good morning," he chirped. Leora leaned down to kiss his forehead. "Good morning, love." Rashawn ruffled Nolan's hair with gentle affection. "Ready for school?" Nolan wrinkled his nose. "As ready as any kid can be." Leora laughed softly. The light-heartedness was a welcome shift. As they ate breakfast together, the table felt different. Not magically healed, not perfectly comfortable, but softer. As if the emotional distance between her and Rashawn had loosened, just slightly, enough to let air move through again. After dropping Nolan at school, she returned home with Rashawn. The moment they stepped inside, the silence felt deeper, but this time it carried possibility instead of fear. They settled in the living room, not too close, not too far. The morning light rested gently over them. Rashawn took a breath. "Last night, hearing you talk to Nolan, it made me realize I haven't been paying attention the way I should," he said quietly. She looked down at her hands. "It wasn't your fault alone." "I know," he admitted. "We both built the wall." Leora nodded. It was the truth neither of them had wanted to face. "What happened to us?" she whispered. "We used to lean on each other. Now it feels like we tiptoe around everything." Rashawn's voice softened. "I think life got loud. Work, stress, expectations, and somewhere in that noise, we forgot to choose each other." Those words struck something deep inside her. "I miss when things were simple," she said, "when we didn't have to worry about saying the wrong thing." "I miss that too," he replied. She looked up, meeting his gaze. This time, she didn't look away. "What do you want now?" she asked gently. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I want us to find each other again," he said. "Not the past version, not the perfect version, just us." Her heart trembled. "What if we don't know how?" "Then we learn," he said, "together." She felt a warmth spread through her chest. Hope, cautious but steady. Then he added quietly, "I don't want Nolan to grow up thinking silence is normal." That hit her harder than she expected. She swallowed. "Neither do I." The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt like a pause before something important, something tender. She shifted slightly on the couch, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you think we can start small? Yes, he murmured. Small is still something. Leora nodded, feeling an unexpected spark of courage. But just as she was about to speak, a soft chime echoed through the room. Her phone buzzed on the table. She reached for it slowly, unsure why her hands suddenly felt colder. The message on the screen made her heart stop. It was from someone she hadn't heard from in a long time. And seeing that name brought back feelings she thought she had already buried. Leora stared at the glowing screen, her breath catching before she could pull it steady again. The name felt unfamiliar only because she had tried so hard to push it into the farthest corners of her memory. Amarin, a friend from a life that now felt like a distant chapter. Someone who had once held a gentle place in her heart, nothing improper, nothing dramatic, but meaningful in a way she had never fully understood. A comfort during a time when she felt invisible in her own home. They had drifted apart naturally, almost silently, once she decided she needed to protect her marriage from quietly shifting lines. She had not heard from him in many months. Rashawn noticed the way her expression changed. Is everything okay? He asked carefully. She hesitated, not wanting to stir ripples they were only beginning to calm. It's just someone I knew reaching out, she said softly. Someone important? He asked, voice calm but touched with something vulnerable. Not anymore, she replied, just unexpected. Her phone buzzed again, a second message. She didn't open it. She wasn't even sure she wanted to. Instead, she set the phone face down on the table, taking a slow breath. Rashawn watched her with quiet concern. If it's something that troubles you, you can tell me. Leora looked at him carefully. His tone wasn't accusing, wasn't rigid. It was sincere, and that made her chest ache in a different way. It's nothing dangerous, she said gently. Just a person from the past, someone who reached out when I was feeling very lost. The moment she said it, she worried it sounded heavier than she meant. But Rashawn didn't react with anger or suspicion. Instead, he looked pained, not because of jealousy, but because he seemed to recognize the weight of her loneliness back then. I didn't realize you felt that alone, he said quietly. Leora swallowed hard. We weren't talking much at that time. I didn't know how to reach you. I should have been there, he murmured. It wasn't your fault alone, she said softly. We both drifted. The sunlight shifted across the living room, warm but gentle, matching the fragile honesty between them. After a long moment, Rashawn leaned back on the couch, letting out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for months. Do you want to respond to him? He asked. Her eyes widened slightly. He was hurting, she could see that, but he was offering her honesty instead of shutting down, something she had long wished for. No, she said firmly. That part of my life ended for a reason. I don't want anything that pulls me away from this, she gestured between them, when we're finally trying to rebuild. Rashawn's expression softened with something close to relief. Thank you for saying that, he whispered. Leora reached for the phone again, only to swipe the notification away without opening it. She let it fall silent on the table. A small act, but it felt like closing a door gently and choosing the room she wanted to stay in. Rashawn noticed. His eyes warmed. How are you feeling now? He asked. She took a moment to understand her own emotions before answering. I feel like I'm standing in a doorway, she said, half in the past, half in the future, and trying to choose the right direction. He nodded. Then we'll step forward together, one small step at a time. The reassurance eased something inside her. The room felt different now, not just two people sitting in the same space, but two hearts trying to meet again. She exhaled slowly, letting that fragile comfort settle. But just as the air began to calm, her phone vibrated again. A third message. Her stomach tightened, not because she wanted to read it, but because she feared what it might say. Rashawn looked at her with quiet worry. "Do you want to see it?" Leora hesitated, fingertips hovering over the phone. "I'm afraid to," she whispered. "What are you afraid of?" he asked gently. She lifted her eyes to meet his. "I'm afraid it might pull me back to a time when I didn't feel seen, and I don't want to go backward anymore." Rashawn opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't another message. It was a call. And the name on the screen made Leora's heart tremble all over again. The phone's soft vibration filled the quiet room, its glow reflecting faintly across the coffee table. Leora stared at the name appearing on the screen again and again, the sound echoing deeper than she wanted it to. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her breath felt trapped somewhere between her ribs and her throat. Amarin was calling. Not messaging, not sending a polite greeting. Calling. Rashawn glanced at the screen, then at her. His expression held no anger, only worry, and a hesitant question he didn't know how to ask. "Do you want to answer it?" he murmured. Leora shook her head once, firmly. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Her voice finally gained the steadiness her heart lacked. She reached out, pressed the side button, and silenced the phone. The room fell quiet again, but the emotional air still trembled slightly. She leaned back slowly, letting the silence settle around them. Rashawn waited, not pushing, just giving her space to breathe. After a long pause, she spoke. "He was kind to me during a time when I felt invisible. That's all it ever was. But I don't want anything, from anyone, that fills the space we're trying to rebuild." Her words were calm, honest, and surprisingly clear. She didn't just say them for Rashawn's reassurance. She said them for her own heart, too. Rashawn exhaled, a quiet breath full of unspoken relief. "I'm glad you told me." Leora felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She wasn't crying from sadness. This felt different. This felt like release. "I don't want confusion in my life anymore," she whispered. "I want clarity. I want peace. And I want us to try again." He reached out a little, not touching her hand, but letting his own rest on the couch cushion close to hers, an invitation, not a demand. She looked at the small space between their hands, that tiny distance that had once stretched into months of emotional silence. She bridged it. Her fingers moved gently, finding his. The moment they touched, her heart softened in a way she hadn't expected. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just real. Rashawn's hand curled slowly around hers, warm, steady, and almost trembling with how long he had been waiting for this kind of moment. "I want that too," he whispered. For a while, they didn't speak. The sunlight drifted across the floor, shifting patterns between them, wrapping the morning in a quiet sense of beginning. Finally, Leora stood up. "Let me block the number," she said softly. "You don't have to." "I want to," she interrupted gently. She opened the phone, pressed a few buttons, and with steady breath, removed that lingering doorway to the past. When she set the phone aside, she felt lighter, as if she had closed a chapter without slamming it shut. Rashawn watched her carefully. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "What did you want most during those months when we drifted?" he asked. "Not from anyone else, just from me." The question softened her in a way she didn't expect. She sat beside him again, her voice quiet and honest. "I wanted to feel seen," she said. "Not perfectly, not constantly, just seen enough to know we were still choosing each other even when life was hard." He nodded slowly. The sincerity in his eyes held no defensiveness. "And what do you want now?" he asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "I want us to talk more, even when we're tired, even when we're unsure. I want us to notice each other the way we used to, and the way Nayland so naturally does." He smiled gently at that, a soft curve of warmth that reached his eyes. "Then that's where we start," he said. Leora felt something warm bloom inside her, not loud like fireworks, but like the glow of a candle relit after being forgotten too long. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, not seeking rescue, not longing for perfection, just allowing herself to rest in a place she hoped they were both ready to rebuild. Moments passed quietly, like the house itself was exhaling with them. Then the sound of a key in the front door broke the hush. Nayland's cheerful voice filled the hallway. "Mom, Dad, I'm home." Leora lifted her head, and for the first time in months, she felt ready to greet the future. Hand in hand, together.